Good afternoon. Happy Memorial Day. I am Attorney Thelma Anderson with the Public Opinion Court in collaboration with Real Life Street Stars. And today I am reporting on a story a case that has been making national news for some time. So before I get started, as you come into the room, make sure you are liking and subscribing to the page if you are new here. But if you're true here, make sure you are liking away, because what I have for you all today is just an overview of why it's important to make sure that when you have a high profile case like Karmelo Anthony's, you have the right advocates on your team. And if you've been following this story, you know that the family of Karmelo Anthony has an advocate on their team by the name of Dominique Alexander. And let's just say he's doing a disservice to this family. He's putting his family in, I'm not going to say harm's way because that's inflammatory, but he is causing more problems for this family with the behavior that he is exhibiting. He's getting in the way of the legal team. And quite frankly, he's messing up Karmelo Anthony's legal case. So I've been reporting on this since this case happened because I, of course, reside in Dallas County. I am a former prosecutor and a former municipal court judge, and I break down cases so that you all can be aware and be informed. The information that I have came into possession of by the way of this investigative journalist. Her name is Sarah J. Fields. Sarah J. Fields is a Caucasian woman. I think she's conservative because she posts more things that are damaging to African Americans than she do to others. However, my distaste for some of her posting has nothing to do with my support for her breaking down and bringing to light why Dominique Alexander and Next Gen or whatever gen they are, because they change like you change a baby diaper, why they are dangerous for this family. So when I started going down a rabbit hole on Sarah J. Fields, she literally has uncovered a lot of things that we would not have known about Dominique Alexander. But before we go into Dominique, let's talk about the recent indictment of Karmelo Anthony. I am pissed off. I am upset. I am hurt. This does not take away from the fact that there is a child that lost their life. However, I feel, in my opinion, because this is the public opinion court, that Karmelo Anthony was using lawful self-defense. So therefore, I feel that they overcharged him. I was about to grab my hair. I feel that they overcharged him, y'all. And let me tell you why. Murder requires a certain mens rea. Murder requires intent or premeditation. So what that means is Karmelo would have had the intent prior to the actual altercation in order for his mens rea to qualify for a murder charge. He did not have the mens rea, which means that the intent should fall flat on its face. Now you're probably like, well, what kind of offense, if any, if he's used self-defense, that he should have used? Let me take myself on down to the ground. So to give y'all a legal breakdown of what the law states about this, I went and pulled up the penal code so that you all could see what the state of Texas penal code states for murder. Under the Texas penal code, it states a person commits murder if they intentionally or knowingly cause death of an individual. So when you say intentionally or knowingly, what that means is they can charge you with either or. That's why that or is right there. It's very important. That's why that or. If it was and, that means that they would have to meet both knowingly and intentionally. But because there's an or, they have another option. So when you look at the law, it says intentionally or knowingly. So my belief, without seeing the actual indictment, because it got to be printed and it got to go through the system, my belief is the Collin County prosecutors, which the grand jury is a blind proceeding, which means that a defense really don't get the opportunity to put on anything. The state goes in with the information that they were given from the law enforcement agency. And we know how shitty law enforcement agencies can be. And we know how shitty the Frisco Police Department has been. Because how in the hell of hells do you know that Austin Metcalf, God rest his soul, how do you know that Austin Metcalf committed the initial crime on Karmelo Anthony? Because what people don't understand is when he went and used force resulting in an assault to take Karmelo's bag from him in the state of Texas, that constitutes a robbery, which is a second-degree felony, a serious felony. And the reason why thefts elevate to a robbery is the type of force that you use. So if you put your hands on someone, i.e. assault them, in the midst of you taking their property, which is a theft, that elevates to a robbery. So what did Austin Metcalf do? He committed a second-degree felony, which is a robbery. So an individual who commits a violent felony, the victim has the ability to use self-defense. To and which degree is reasonable and necessary to contain the threat. And make no mistake, he was a threat. I believe he was over 90 pounds more, way over 90 pounds more than Karmelo. That is an unproportionate threat, which means that the threat is even more significant because of the weight difference. So, what does the self-defense penal code state in the state of Texas? You have to look under section 9.31 and 9.32. An individual is justified in using force or deadly force if they reasonably believe it is immediately necessary to protect against another's use of force. Now, you remember I said that or means either this one or that one. So when you look at the self-defense, he is justified in using force, which means that if I got to push you off of me and you so happen to fall over and hit your head, I can use that type of force because I'm defending myself. Or if I have to use deadly force based on the immediate threat, and it is necessary for me to use deadly force to contain the threat, Texas affords that ability. So if you are just joining, make sure you are liking. Get them likes up, ladies and gentlemen, because what I'm giving you, I'm schooling you on the law in black and white, as simple as I can put it, because of how pissed off I am at Collin County, which let me tell you, Collin County is number 2 when we're talking about skin folk. Denton County is the worst county in North Texas for an African American to be charged with a crime. Collin County is number 2. So this is why this breakdown is so necessary, so that you all can understand how urgent this is and how detrimental this is to the Anthony's family that law enforcement may have, which I'm going to submit a public information request so that I can see what they used and how they used it to render an indictment of first-degree murder. So you got to ask yourself, if the grand jury is only going by what law enforcement put in their investigation, then you got to ask the question, what was their investigation? What did they look at? How did they come to this conclusion? So back to explaining, I explained the law. Now, if any of y'all have any questions, hit that chat. Hit it. Ask the question. Y'all are in the best position to ask the question about this case, because I know it's a lot. I know it's confusing. That's the reason why I'm doing this breakdown at this moment. Now we go to, since I talked about how do we get here? How how did the Anthonys get to a position to where law enforcement got an indictment returned for a murder when it's intentionally or knowingly? And you have to have the intent at the time. You have to know at the time that this is what you're going to do. There is not one person on this earth can convince me that Karmelo knew or had the intent at the time. If the math ain't math, and it ain't mathing. I'm glad you asked this question. Let's get into it. So y'all remember I told you we are in Collin County, one of the most tough counties for people that look like us. So we got to play the long game. We got to be strategic. We have to be quiet and effective. That's why you have to hire the right people. You have to have the right team. And you have to have the right strategy for the public opinion court. In this particular case, yes, his family needed an advocate, a legitimate advocacy organization. Yes, his family needed the right legal team, which I do believe he has a great lawyer. And I believe there's a second lawyer that should be on the case, but I'm not naming until they do. And you have to have a crisis management team of legal consultants to contain and work with the advocacy organization. So, Memphis said, how did first degree become an option? When you have individuals like Dominique Alexander going in the public and playing in these people's faces, you now go into the danger zone of tainting the jury pool. And what does tainting the jury pool looks like? You are in Collin County. You don't know who is on the secret grand jury. And because there's been so much toxic media surrounding this case at the hands of Next Gen organization that is ran by Dominique Alexander, guess what? Now that secret grand jury has the ability to taint up here, that would taint right there to a first degree option. That's why it was not okay for this dude to get on God's internet and play in the face of this family, knowing that he's not qualified, knowing that he doesn't have the resources, knowing that he has never handled a case to this magnitude, and he should have walked away. Dominique's public actions and commentary risk tainting the impartiality of the jury pool, even a grand jury. The statements that he appeared and used that racially charged and seek media spotlight that he did to go viral so that he can reap the benefits may have influenced the public's perspective and perception, ultimately the grand jury's decision. That is a reality. That's why lawyers do not play in the media. They play in the court of law. People like Dominique play in the public opinion. And what he did was fuck this case up. And that's the best word I can use for it. because advocacy should not cross into the interference or showboating, which may undermine the legal proceeding. No, the highest charge should have been manslaughter or negligent homicide. Let me tell you why. Let me bring this to the stage. This case, Casey Allison, was charged with first-degree murder of Joe Ramirez, and it's a similar situation. Casey Allison, which is a Caucasian little boy or teenager, he's a grown man now because this happened, I believe, 2-3 years ago. Make sure you're getting the lights up, ladies and gentlemen, so that we can keep this content going strong. Please, 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 like. Casey Allison and Joe Ramirez had a beef at a prom because of somebody dating somebody. I don't know who. Well, Joe Ramirez had it out for him. So Casey Allison said, "Oh, I'm taking a knife to school because you ain't finna get me. I'm already a meek and mild. I don't fight." So Casey Allison, which just happened in the state of Texas, y'all. Casey Allison went into the bathroom, and just so happened, I believe Joe Ramirez followed. Somehow they ended up in the bathroom together. It wasn't planned. Well, guess what? Joe Ramirez saw his opportunity and he started to attack Casey Allison. Now, did I tell y'all Casey Allison had it on his mind? That's why he took a knife to school. He didn't have it on his mind to kill, but he had it on his mind to protect his mens rea. But the state of Texas didn't care. Joe Ramirez lost his life. Casey Allison ended up getting charged with first-degree murder. His bail was also $1 million, but it was reduced to $175,000. He just went on trial. His trial just ended like 3 weeks ago. The trial lasted for 2 weeks. And they found him not guilty of murder, but they found him guilty of negligent homicide, which makes him eligible for probation immediately because he does not have any criminal history. See, this is the problem when these prosecutors overcharge, when they know their duty is to follow the evidence, follow the facts. And just like in Casey Allison should never have been charged with first-degree murder, because who started to attack him? Joe Ramirez. Unfortunately, Joe ended up being unalived. I brought that comparison up so that y'all can see why they overcharged Karmelo. And they did it on purpose. They did it because they could. They did it because who gonna stop them? But I can promise you, if Dominique Alexander wasn't out here making a mockery, Carmelo Anthony's team of lawyers could have mitigated as much as possible, but you cannot mitigate when you have a nuisance inciting fires, when a family should not have to endure, but focus on making sure Carmelo has the best defense ever. No, they did not agree to meet in the bathroom and fight. No, they did. So going back to Hold on, let me add this to the stage. Going back to tainting the jury pool. That's how we possibly got here. That's why Dominique Alexander needs to get off of this case. He is a problem. And let me tell you why. Sarah, do I have Sarah's picture? Do I have her picture? Let me see if I have Sarah's picture. Sarah J. Fields, who is a investigative journalist. Let me get her picture so that y'all can know exactly who she is. She is an investigative journalist, and what she did was she went and investigated Homeboy. And what I mean by Homeboy, I mean Dominique Alexander. And she started investigating him right away. She is the one that went down the litany to identify all of his criminal history, some of the non-reporting allegedly, and I'm going to say allegedly because that's not my fight. But my fight is to make sure that Karmelo Anthony's family get away from this nuisance. He is a nuisance. Y'all. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Devon. Let me pull up her picture so that y'all can see. Because y'all probably have seen her. Like I said, she's a conservative. I don't agree with everything she say. But when it comes to this person, she is on point with keeping her foot on his neck. No pun intended. This is not associated with the anniversary of George Floyd. This is an unphysical statement when somebody is making sure that you are seen for your transgressions and how harmful you are to a case. So this is Sarah J. Fields. Sarah J. Fields brought to light a bunch of things that the Karmelo Anthony family should focus on. Like one, she asked him, show proof of your organization's last 5 years of IRS filings, because there's allegedly none on record. Allegedly, he hasn't submitted tax returns since 2020. And allegedly, he has been changing his business every time the government comes and asks him a question. She posed the question, why do you have unpaid taxes for your 501c3? Because you're supposed to file taxes on the 501c3. She then posed the question, so you have this security company all of a sudden. Now, you know that a 501c3 is not supposed to get paid for being an advocate. But unfortunately, what she uncovered has concerns for me, because I feel like, in my opinion, the Anthonys may be getting taken advantage of. So when the Give Fund account was set up, it was set up for the purposes of his legal defense, as well as the purpose of security. Guess who now has a security company or integration in their organization? Dominique Alexander. Guess who's head of the security? This individual. And let's talk about this individual. what she identified. Well, she did. Hold on. Let me pull it up on. Hold on 1 second. 1 second. So, in her journalistic approach to her investigation, on May 14th, she submitted a public information request where she asked, please provide me with any information that can be released to the public about if the following individuals or companies have ever applied for or had a licensure as a private investigator, security guard, or any other license overseen in Texas. She identified Dominique, this individual whose name I can't pronounce, and I ain't even gonna hold you. The Next Generation Action Network. And guess what they said? The Texas Department of Public Safety has reviewed its files and has determined there are no responsive records to your request based on the information, which means that they do not have a license with the state of Texas to operate as and be identified as security. You know why that is a problem? Because under Texas Occupation Code, Chapter 1702, providing or advertising security services without a valid license is illegal. Is illegal. And we have them on in the thread. Would you like for me to send you the login so that you can attest to what Sarah J. Fields has investigated Next Gen Action Network? Would you like to come on so we can discuss how your inflammatory behavior has caused distress in the Anthony's actual legal representation? Can you want to come on to explain how you are not advocating, but you are actually causing more of a problem? Do you want to come on and talk about the conversation that we had when you messaged me and asked me did I have any information on how to get in contact with the Anthony family? Do you want to come on and talk about how I asked you, hey, why don't you reach out to Lee Merritt? And you stated that, oh, Lee Merritt has a bad reputation in Collin County. No one wants to work with him, which in fact was a lie. In fact, do you want to talk about how you was hating on Lee Merritt and how you did not want a real advocate to come on and make sure that the Karmelo Anthony family had the right representation, but you wanted your 15 minutes of fame to grow yourself, and you focus on yourself and nobody else? This is a career move for you. Do you want to talk about that? Do you want to talk about how you were the individual that brought Billy Clark onto the case, knowing that he did not have any experience to handle this kind of case, which delayed Karmelo Anthony the ability to get out of custody at a faster rate, which he had to sit in jail for 2 weeks because you hired inexperienced individuals? Do you want to talk about how you had Kim on this particular case, knowing that she never tried a case of this magnitude? Do you want to talk about that? Because you can come on here, we can discuss it. We can get into it. Because what you're not going to do is come in these comments and not hold yourself accountable and calling this baseless commentary. It is a shame to witness a Black man use a family for his social climb. It is a shame to see a Black man decide that he is not going to maintain the actual sanctity of the reason why this family needs protection. It's a shame that you got on national TV and disrespected an individual who, yes, should not have showed up to that press conference, but you had an opportunity to mitigate, but you inflamed that situation because you do not have the moral compass or the ability to properly communicate and properly and effectively detain situations. You are no advocate. You are no advocate. And what you're not going to do is state that it's a shame to witness a Black woman. What is a shame to witness a Black man cause more harm than good to an innocent African-American boy whose life is on the line, who's looking at possibly first-degree murder. And you think this is a game. You want to go on platform after platform after platform spewing negativity. That is the problem. Now, I gave you the opportunity to come on here and let's talk about it. Because I can really dig, just like Sarah has, into more information. And so let me get back to that because I do have other things to do today, but I came on here because I see the need to individuals to know exactly what kind of organization this is, and for the Karmelo Anthony family to know exactly what kind of individual who's playing in their face. So back to where is... See, I was going to take it light on you, but now let's get into it. So what the state of Texas has stated in this response to the public information request that Sarah J. Fields received is the Next Gen Action Network does not have a license to operate or call themselves security. Do you want to attest to that, Dominique? Do you want to answer that? Do you want to answer that? No? Okay, next slide. Let's talk about the unnecessary post that your security made that should have more integrity and understand the sensitivity of this matter. POV, which means point of view. Hold on. Since you want to make comments and you don't want to come to the congregation, you don't want to come to the congregation? You don't want to tell the people the truth? You don't want nobody to tell the people the truth? Black or white? I've always stated, I do not align with Sarah J. Fields' views, but right is right and wrong is wrong. POV, with Karmelo Anthony, I gave the aggressive reporter that look. Once we got into the car and she gave me the nod, she knew at that point I was pissed. Move, lady. Was that appropriate? No, that was not appropriate. That is adding and inflaming a situation. Let's talk about what Sarah J. Fields identified from your head security. She went, and like I said, this is allegedly. This is her investigation that I am unpacking. She identified that the individual that is ahead of, oh, Dominique, okay, let's get to it. Let me show the people what you said. She identified, the same individual that's ahead of your security that made that inflammatory statement about this reporter. What she stated, your organization don't have a license. That's what the public information request stated. Your organization don't have a license. If it do, prove it. Show it to the people. Show it to the state. He has how many offenses? Arrest for a misdemeanor possession. That was back in 98. That's minor. Deferred adjudication in 98 must have been for their possession of marijuana. Successfully completed probation. Arrest for assault, family violence, a violent offense, something that you are very familiar with. Arrest for an unlawful carry of a weapon, that was in 2023. The case is still active as May 14, 2025. Let's go back. Hold on, I got some more. There's another individual on your team of security that has not, according to the public information request that Sarah came out with, don't have a license. Damian C.J. R. Crenshaw. Where's his license? And the reason why I'm making a point about this is because you are a nuisance to this family. You are causing more of a disruption instead of the peace that they deserve as they are navigating through the criminal justice process as African-American man that I believe is innocent and was using self-defense. So, therefore, let's go to the next slide. Since he wants to throw dirt for dirt, I can throw dirt right back at you, but I'm here to identify why you are a nuisance and need to remove yourself. And everything that you are posting in these comments, I'm going to make sure that I get in contact with this family to let them know what kind of advocate is playing on the internet when their son is fighting for his freedom. How about that? Let's talk about the financial information that she divulged in her investigation. What she stated was, Karmelo Anthony, newly hired attorney, which this was back when it first happened, Kim Cole, who's no longer the attorney, and probably was the scapegoat because you told me that she was not supposed to be identified as the attorney. You told me that Billy Clark was not supposed to be identified as the attorney. They came out to the public and made a statement without your permission. Then you stated, that when they ended, when everything started to blow up about their lack of qualifications, you stated, oh, KC Fox sent an invoice for $45,000 and Billy Clark sent an invoice for $30,000, which they didn't do any work for that amount. But let me break down why this is a problem. Kim Cole was your general counsel. Billy Clark was friends with KC Fox. When you brought Kim Cole in, guess what? She brought K Fox in. When K Fox got in, she brought Billy Clark in, which I believe that this was going to be a secret society on how to figure out how to gain whatever you was looking to gain. But when the public started to report, which I reported, and you told me you sent that video to the Anthonys because I broke down how they lack the experience. Now you want to come in the comments and try to discredit me when I got recordings of conversations with you because I didn't trust you. My whole objective was always to make sure that family was safe and safe away from you. But unfortunately, you still got a tug on them, so let's go. What she identified is NGAN is a Black Lives Matter supporting 501c3 that is based on a full investigation, has brought in 6 figures, yet filed a total of only 2 IRS reports since its inception in 2014. According to the federal law, this is Sarah J. reporting on this. According to her investigation, records also show that the organization received grants from another entity called Good Works Dallas with the same registered address, which can be indicated on was the same registered address as Next Gen organization. Why do they have the same? Why do they have the same address as you? Why? Why do they have the same address as you? Which she indicated can indicate alleged money laundering. Since you want to target me, they have also repeatedly opened new 501c organizations, 3 and 4 under slightly different names, and when their status is revoked for lack of financial filings or when pressure is placed on them to file, they start a new entity. Why is that? Why just not file and go about your merry way? This leaves room for money to disappear. This involves multiple federal EINs, state recognition, and missing entities in between years that each 501c has begun. What Sarah J. stated, this is not my words, this is her words. So allegedly, the fraudulent foundation is run and was founded by Dominique Alexander, a known felon with a history of fraud, forgery, corruption, women battery, and convictions for child abuse. Dominique also has a history of provoking violent protests, arriving at people's private homes to protest, and intimidating jurors. You remember when I said tainting the jury pool? Dominique also is responsible for the protest in Dallas that ended with Micah Johnson's gunfire and 5 officers being unalived. In a recent press conference, Dominique Alexander spoke as an advocate of the Anthonys, stating that the bond was too high and the defendant the argument of self-defense. He said the family is dealing with racism and bigotry. In a recent press conference, hold on, let me go down. some more because I got videos. On the second post regarding her investigation, this is her words. I'm just bringing it to light because of you are a convicted criminal who continues to make excuses for your violent behavior, which can be seen in some of the videos that I'm going to pull up. Your behavior has persisted and your attitude hasn't changed. I'm over the target with your fraudulent organization, and I will not stop reporting the truth and sharing evidence about you and your team. You are responsible for the physical injury of a 2-year-old baby. You abuse women, and your violent protests have resulted in multiple officers being unalived. I would not stop my investigative work exposing your grief and race-baiting behavior. You don't want peace, you want hate. You want just hate for white people. You monetize off stirring up racism in the masses in Texas. You're not a national leader by any means. You are not a leader. That is another one. So she did an investigation. She pulled up the IRS information to confirm. Have you filed any taxes on this organization to make it a legitimate organization that can even represent Karmelo Anthony's family? Because if you have not, you are causing more harm to this family. I gave you the opportunity to come to this stage to make your statements. If it's not true, come and say it. If it's not true, come and say it. If it's not true, come and say it. You have the floor. I can send you exactly where to come in order to join the show. Okay, let me keep going. You don't want to join. Her recent posting. She did an exclusive 3 days ago. Hold on 1 second. On her exclusive, she stated, many of you remember the video of Dominique Alexander with the Next Generation Action Network, a felon posing as Karmelo's advocate, leading him with his own security team from the jail to a secure vehicle. The footage below was profoundly filmed and posted. That video should never have been posted. That film should have never been posted. Like, this is his life, and you want to get clickbait. POV, with Karmelo Anthony, I gave the aggressive reporter that look. This is what the security detail stated. Director of Security and Protocol, according to Next Gen Action Network website run by Dominique Alexander, who he just said is not the same organization. He said this is not the same organization. However, according to a newly obtained response to the request sent to the Texas Department of Public Safety, His head of security, is not licensed as a private investigator or security guard, nor does he have any licensing overseeing by the Texas Private Security Board, nor has he ever applied for a license. Dominique, why don't he have a license? He showed up to that jail so that y'all could get clickbait. Why don't he have a license? That is causing more problems for the Anthony family. She reported, this is illegal in the state of Texas. In Texas, even if you're working as an unarmed security guard, you need to be licensed to provide personal security. The Texas Department of Public Safety requires all security guards, both armed and unarmed, to be licensed. This is typically done by registering with DPS and completing level 2 security guard training. Additionally, NGAN is required by law to display its Texas private security license on its website. I didn't see it on the website. Dominique, I gave you the opportunity to come up here. Is it on the website? I didn't see it. Sarah didn't see it. NGAN is also supposed to maintain a certificate of insurance and surety bond on file with the Private Security Board at all times, according to Section 1702.123 of the Texas Occupation Code. She reported that the individual whose head of security has a history of assaults on family members, unlawfully carrying of a weapon, and a marijuana possession, which that is minor. Marijuana possessions back in 1998 has no relevance. But this individual is currently has a pending UCW, and y'all showed up for clickbait. When this young man is trying to maintain his sanctity in something he was doing to protect himself. Now he has to protect himself from your organization. The Anthony family has been receiving security service under false pretenses at the hands of Next Gen. So, additionally, they are required to display all of this, ladies and gentlemen. She also reported that the fraudulent organization, which she identified as fraudulent, that is not my position. But I'm reporting on this. Next Gen Action Network, the fraudulent organization ran by Dominique Alexander, is not only committing financial fraud through his organization, but is also endorsing candidates under the guise of having an active 501c4. Now, it's clear that they are breaking even more laws publicly and blatantly with no accountability from authorities. According to the federal law, a Section 501c3 organization may not publish or distribute printed statements or making oral statements on the behalf of or in opposition to a candidate for public office. Consequently, a written or oral endorsement of a candidate is strictly forbidden. The rating of candidates, even on nonpartisan bias, is also prohibited. On the other hand, as Section 501c4, 5 or 6, organizations may engage in political campaigning provided that such activities are not the organization's primary activity. In addition to 501c, organizations that make expenditures for political activity may be subject to tax under Section 527F. NGAN is a 501c3 organization with a tax-exempt status, considering the fact that they have not filed a financial statement since 2020 is a massive oversight by the IRS, and they are still active. This is what Sarah J. has done her research on. NGAN is misleading their own readers on their website where they state that they are a 501c3 organization. However, according to their website, they are funded by Act Blue. According to public records, the NGAN 501c4 was revoked in 2017 for not filing financial statements 3 consecutive years in a row. Yet they have continued to collect funding, involve themselves politically, and are endorsing candidates. Under the Internal Revenue Code, all sections under 501c3 organizations are absolutely prohibited from directly or indirectly participating in or intervening in any political campaign on behalf of or in opposition of any candidate. After looking through NGAN's social media, it is clear that they have continued endorsing candidates even through 2022 primary elections. And I even saw that. NGAN is a BLM supporting 501c3 that, based on a full investigation, has brought in 6 figures, yet has filed a total of only 2 IRS reports since its inception in 2014. And according to the federal law, under Sarah J's investigation, 501c3 are required to file annual returns of their income and expenses with the Internal Revenue Service. So, Dominique, is this the reason why you did not want to come to the stage? I offered you the ability to come to the stage. I would have allowed you to talk, and we could have had a conversation of why your background is causing problems for Karmelo Anthony's legal defense. They have also repeatedly opened new organizations under slightly different names, and when their status is revoked for lack of financial filing or when pressure is placed on them to file, they usually start a new entity. They leave room for money to disappear and allow for money for what she states money laundering. Since 2007, they have not started a new, since 2007, they have not started a new 501c4. Dominique Alexander and his organization, in her opinion, are lying to everyone involved. They must be investigated immediately for, in her opinion, in her investigation, this is not my opinion. So I'm going to say for allegedly financial fraud and the illegal misuse of their organization to endorse candidates also. So what she did in her investigation, she went and pulled the information from when they have received donations. They have received donations in amount of $7,000. They have received donations in amount of $25,000 from, I'm not going to put the name of the individuals because I'm not trying to put them in anything. They received one for $25,000. Oh, and let's talk about the IRS. She pulled this from their 501c3, where she documented some of their assets versus their expenses and stated, where is the filing? So when you get on here and you try to come for me, because my goal is to make sure this family get the right advocates around them because of individuals that I believe is out for their own agenda. And what I mean by that, look at this video.
Don't quote anybody. Is a disrespect to the dignity of his son. Of the father being at this press conference. These are my words. Don't quote anybody. Is a disrespect to the dignity of his son.
That was inappropriate because what he said after the fact is that he did not come for this individual. I do not agree that the Metcalf father should not have been there. This was not the time or the place, and it was not the time or the place for him to make such an inflaming comment when you have a jury pool that could be tainted by your negative energy. Let me add this to the stage before I end this.
About 11 a.m. was where the press conference was actually supposed to start, right? About 10 a.m., because of the threats that we were receiving,
Let me pass
they
forward.
were already here. We heard so many different gossip bloggers, YouTube,
You heard about
TikTok,
the gossip
you know,
bloggers.
Fox News, all of these people talking about, you know, how could you be insensitive to the father? How could you tell him to leave? He's the victim. He's this, he's that. What you're missing, this press conference was not organized.
It wasn't the fact that he was told to leave. It's the fact that you got back on God's internet and stated he disrespected the dignity of his son's memory. That's what the problem was.
Organized by him. This press conference wasn't about him. This press conference didn't invite him. It's a private facility. And yet at the end of the day, it's a criminal case, y'all. It's literally inappropriate, not only ethically, but it's inappropriate for that family to interact. And we don't know what we don't know. And at the end of the day, I have to ensure that the safety of all of the parties are intact. Just someone showing up at our press conference, we can't just have that. We don't know what it is. But this whole notion that we just went after him and attacked him and just had this vendetta against this father who has lost his child. Look, I've lost a child. I'm 1 year later after burying my own son. I really, quite frankly, don't give a damn, right? So I just want you to,
Hold on, let me show
quite
you.
frankly, don't. If you personally know me,
Let me
rush
show
to
you.
do videos and do this. And you know, I really don't care about what no one says about me. I really don't. I don't care about the racist pricks who want to say things about Dominique and say something about my past. I really, quite frankly, don't. If you personally know me, you know your attacks towards me only do one thing: boost my ego, right? The reality is,
Boost your ego when we're talking about a teenager whose life is on the line and you are worried about your ego being boosted. That's the problem. Outside of everything else that is imploring on the identity of this case, your identity as an advocate, your issues as an advocate should not be on front and center. And when you recognize that, you know that you need to remove yourself. You are causing too much of distraction, destruction, inflammatory responses, going on tour after tour, when all you had to do was properly strategize how to manage such a massive case that you've never handled before. Instead of hating on individuals like Lee Merritt, who is an advocate, who has the resources and would have put this family in a better position, just like other advocate organizations that are not in the cameras trying to be all in front to get your likes up, to get your views up, so that more people can come and ultimately probably be damaged just as much as the Karmelo Anthony family, and have to deal with the repercussions of an advocate who's not advocating, but inciting. So you can come and say whatever you want, but you know my receipts are real. And you know that I only report on real information. And if I'm up here reporting about this, that is because I'm passionate about making sure this young man does not go away for the rest of his life when he was using self-defense to defend himself. But for you are tainting this case every single day. Every time you get on God's internet and talk about yourself, You are causing more problems. All up in the videos, trying to get your likes up, trying to get your views up. Leave this family alone. Let real advocates come and advocate for this family. Let their lawyers do the work. And the fact that you have been emailing the district and knowing that they should have had an education lawyer, my God. Y'all pray for this family. Make sure that you are continuing to donate to Karmelo Anthony's legal defense. Make sure you are praying for this family. Make sure that we are keeping the positive in spite of this negative video, because it has to be done. God says, share the story. Do not sit on information, because you never know where it may land. So I am sharing this not only because of my experience, but because this is not right. And that is my time today, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you are liking and subscribing to the Real Life Street Stars. And also let me apologize, because I did not want to get riled up, but I'm so passionate about making sure this family does not continue to get harmed, and that Karmelo Anthony gets an opportunity to have real justice in this case. And he cannot do that with this individual connected to them and through them. Thank y'all for joining. Like I said, make sure you have liked and subscribed this stream. You can follow me on at Laurier Bay ESQ. I operate my business consultant, the BYOB firm, where we help individuals learn how to properly form and protect their business. You also can support my, hold on. I wrote a book, Shut Up and Prosecute, that highlights the injustice that I witnessed as a former prosecutor and a former municipal court judge. Shut Up and Prosecute is a real, raw, and intimate experience of why the justice system needs criminal justice reform and also minority prosecutors. You can get a copy of this book on Amazon. Just search Shut Up and Prosecute. And like I said, you can follow me on my personal social. You can follow my YouTube, The Public Opinion Court, my TikTok page, The Public Opinion Court. And I want y'all to have an amazing day. And thank you to the Real Life Street Stars for allowing me to have this opportunity to address a concern for what I see that is happening to this family. And again, Dominique, if you want to have a conversation, a sit down where you're going to actually be real and you're going to actually tell the truth, let's do it. Real life, set it up. Let's get it cracking. Peace.